inspired by a multi-million-dollar franchise. What's going on, guys? I'm Billy Brock, and you know, with Pokemon Terrestrial Takeover, I've noticed I have made like 2 Canada-based Pokemon, and that just won't do at all, now will it? We're making a Fakemon region concept that's including all of North and South America. You gotta include the Great White North, like quite a bit. I mean, seriously, Canada's freaking huge. And thus, there was plenty of inspiration to take from. So like, subscribe, and comment down below, and let's talk about some Canada-mon. Now, I don't know much about Canada, but what I do know is that something called poutine is insanely popular. And for those out of the loop, it's just a dish of fries, cheese curds, and gravy slathered all over it. It's heart attack in a basket. Oh, but dear sweet Arceus, does it look delicious. And every region needs its dedicated food mon, so why not this in particular? And thus I give you Poutine, its pre-evolved form Wimorian Poltegeist. The latter, of course, being inspired by simple gravy boats. Just gravy, because, you know, why not? Like the originals, they still pull from poltergeists, but also a Japanese yokai known as the Tsukumogami, which is an item that has been used for 100 years and has been imbued with a soul afterward. However, Poutine takes a little more relaxing bit of inspiration, coming from the whole idea of having a hot tub soak in a nice, cold, snowy mountain night. You know, that old trope. Just letting the warm bubbles calm you down, heat you up, melt you away, when something in the darkness could be lurking near. Who knows? These Pokemon are very easily attracted to heat, so oftentimes they'll approach really warm plates of food, slathering their gravy or dipping their fries or cheese curds right into them. They just got the noms, nothing else. But if you are unlucky enough to eat a dish slathered in these Pokemon's gravy, well, you'll feel sluggish, woozy, relaxed beyond all belief. One might even say lethargic, as your life force is slowly sapped away from you, just from having a good meal and indulging in your own gluttony. It's a ghost type, you gotta make it creepy somehow, and it's not that easy to make gravy ghosts that kind of spooky, but I kinda love that I did. But we go from one weird ground type mixture to another. Man, this is a back segue. Anyway, this is a mammoth. And back in the day, they were all over Canada. Big, furry, hulky behemoths just trudging along the tundras. Until good old pesky global warming got its grips into them. And now they're nothing but corpses in the mud. And I mean that seriously, because it's very common practice to excavate mammoth carcasses by dousing it with high-pressured water. I kid you not, it's really cool. Hi, Future Brock here, just wanted to correct some facts that I got wrong. That method with the pressurized water and mud, it's done in Siberia, and it's kind of sort of very illegal, but also not. It's kind of confusing. I'll just link a video that I got this information from in the comments, but yeah, back to Fakemon. So why not have a mud-covered mammoth, but we need a little more zest sprinkled into here. So what other interesting practice includes water in a very odd way? And if you said panning for gold, well congrats, you get a cookie. This here is Yukon, a ground and fire type mammoth covered in mud and gold, ready to destroy anyone that tries to take its bounty. Its name takes inspiration from one of Canada's provinces, the Yukon, and the Klondike Gold Rush. It was a time in the late 1800s when an estimated 100,000 prospectors rushed to the Klondike region after gold was struck there. Most of these guys marched their happy little prospector butts up from San Francisco and from Seattle, and, well, some of them made it rich, but others kind of flopped. Oh boy, if they did this in a world where Yukon existed, they would be mincemeat. Getting punched, throttled, gored, yeah, genuinely, this is a Pokemon you don't want to find in the wilderness. It probably will maim you. Speaking of maim, a bear would do that, but I guess it's more like a maul. And a bear trap would also do that. And it just so happens that the bear trap was originally made in Canada. Though, it wasn't the bear trap we know today, you know, big, mean, big old sharp teeth. It was more of a thieves trap. You see, back in the day, people would place things around their home just in case a burglar were to break in. It was kind of like a foothold trap if nothing else, but over time it started to be used in more grisly manners. Pun definitely intended. So why not make a burgling bear with big old bear trap teeth? But the thing is, bears aren't really known for stealing things. But raccoons, though, that's a whole different story. And Stuffle and Beware are already based off the ginger raccoons of red pandas, so why not make a steel normal type Wimorian Stuffle and Wimorian Beware? Both of them have the bear trap jaw like I mentioned before, and of course they'd have the ability strong jaw because of this, but if we take a closer look at Stuffle, it's being weighed down by something. A steel knapsack on its back. That's actually something called a furoshiki. It's a blanket that's often portrayed in media with Japanese burglars and such whenever they're carrying their loot. And to match this trope, they also have a cloth that goes around their face called a hakamuri. Stuffle's the one that really needs them, since it's always the one doing the dirty work and stealing food for everyone in its little pack. But they can't really get their hands on much. They're really weak and feeble. And carrying all that weight on their back, it's crushing. Almost like the guilt of stealing. Hence why these Pokemon are dark type. They feel awful about what they're doing, but they're just trying to survive. Similar thieves traps were used in the region to try and catch any burglaring Stuffle, but they develop steel pads on their paws over time to try and resist it. And even those that do get caught, well, those traps will get crushed by Wamorian Beware. It has massive metal claws, teeth, and bands wrapped around its tail, able to do any kind of piercing, slashing, or bludgeoning attack it wants. Its furoshiki is now also draped over its back, giving it a nice layer of protection. Due to the regional changes, they've had to slump down, start walking around on all fours. They're still massively bulky Pokemon, but this way they're at least a little more stealthy. One Beware will often lead a pack of Stuffle, having them steal things for them, bring them back, and divvy things up accordingly. Of course, leaving most of it for itself. It's larger after all. It needs to eat more, doesn't it? That's what it tells itself at least. It's kind of grizzled in a way. Seeing this whole dang world around it, it's just not fair sometimes. It can't help it fell into this life of crime. It's just on hard times and always has been. Hence some raccoon-like patterns on its body also mimicking prison attire in the old-fashioned way. They're rather tragic Pokemon, but they're frighteningly powerful. However, nothing's more frightening than the unknown. Some eldritchian cryptid creeping around the forests. Something bloodthirsty. Like the story of the Windigo, a ferocious, mythological, cannibalistic monster in the spiritual tradition of North American Algonquian-speaking tribes. Several reports have talked about this cryptid lurking around Canada, giving an eyewitness report of a sort of bipedal deer with large antlers and crazy eyes. But not everything's as scary as it seems. Sometimes these legends get twisted and corrupted into something more frightening. What if a Windigo just wasn't a Windigo? What if it was just something that wanted to be left alone, and this story somehow spiraled into what it is today? What if we had something like Eldrus? A cranky old moose that just wants to be left alone. It's just a solitary Pokemon. It mixes together the idea of a cryptid and that cranky old neighbor down the street that just wants to be left alone, but every neighborhood kid thinks is some kind of evil monster. Eldrus aren't fond of other people or Pokemon. They'll often wander the snowy forest on mountaintops all alone for days, years, even their entire lives even. However, given their intimidating silhouette and massive figure, people often see these Pokemon and assume they're some kind of raging beast, when it's more like the old man shaking his fist angrily in the air telling you to get off his lawn. Its fur is thick and knotted, kind of like an old wool coat. They're also covered in other classical people clothes, such as a Ben Hogan hat where its antlers meet, along with fingerless gloves that give way to its frozen-over fingertips. Such a little idea talking about how old people don't have that good of circulation anymore, so their hands are typically cold. Just a small little thing. And I definitely took inspiration from the old guy from Courage the Cowardly Dog when making this guy, and I kind of think it works. I mean, like, they give off a lot of the same energy in my opinion. I mean, same old clunky feet, same old weird hat. Oh, and actually speaking of that hat, I should mention, Wendigos weren't initially depicted with antlers, hence why it has the ice antlers that wouldn't melt if it went to a harder climate. It would be the equivalent of a moose shedding its antlers in a way. And with such a scrawny frame, it could stand to lose a few pounds, though just not any of the fat because, you know, scrawny old man, it doesn't have any. If we're looking for a Pokemon to lose some weight, that goes to our next entry. Or I should say the evolution of the next entry, because first we have Teaver, a little baby beaver. Look at him. Those big old jumpers teething on his little tail. I mean, I love this guy. And when making a Canada-mons video, I have to put in a beaver Pokemon, don't I? And since those fat little tree gnawers are pretty associated with their big old buck teeth, having this little guy being chewing on something made sense. But why its own tail? Why have it chew on a beaver tail? Being a popular Canadian pastry, it's made out of fried dough that is sold in a variety of flavors. Back in the 70s, it even inspired an entire fast food chain. Canadians can't get enough of this stuff, and frankly, I can't blame them. But also being a baby, Teaver is obviously teething, which is why it's gnawing on its own tail. Teething being a part of its name, of course, being, of course, teething and beaver. It's pretty simple. I should also mention this is the Route 1 normal type of the region, and I know we already have a beaver Route 1 normal type, but like, it's Canada! You gotta have a beaver! Did I have to make it the Route 1 normal type? No. Did I still do it? Of course I did. Of course I did. I make the rules here. But our little baby has to evolve at some point, so say hello to Bevour. He's a devouring beaver that loves to use his own tail as a picnic blanket. I mean, he's just a fat, lovable little guy. You gotta love him. He is a bit of a simpleton though, and these Pokemon drool so much whenever there's food around. I mean, look at the guy. He's covered in stuff. I mean, it's okay for Teaver because, you know, Teaver's a baby, but for this guy, it's less charming, I guess, but still also charming. I mean, I'd give him a hug. He's adorable. Look at him. It still has plenty of baby elements similar to Teaver, such as the little curly-Q head hair piece thing that lots of babies are drawn with, and even a little bib around its neck, being represented by this tuft of fur, drool-soaked though it may be. Bevour all love to picnic in front of a really nice landscape, and with a place like Canada, I mean, can you blame them? I mean, some of this stuff is beautiful, but back to the actual Pokemon. They'll hunt around for berries or any kind of food they can get from trainers until they have the perfect assortment to just sit down, relax, and enjoy a nice meal. They're very simple creatures, and more often than not they will settle and have their picnic on land, but very few will choose to do so in the middle of a stream, their massive tails damming up rivers. They're not water type by any means, but they do have plenty of water and poison type moves. I mean, all that drool's gotta do something, right? It can be quite sticky and even an incredible adhesive. Some Bevour even completely reroute rivers to make the perfect picnic spot, having dams held together by their own spit. It may be a gross idea, but I just gotta love them for it. And to round out our last Pokemon of the video, let's do something that most people are kinda forced to love. Pikachu and its many, many doppelgangers. Every region needs some kind of electric rodent Pikachu ripoff. I mean, it's been a thing since Gen 3? 2? Does Pichu count? I don't think it does. So I figured it was about time I took a crack at making a Pikachu clone. And when searching for inspiration, I learned that the first walkie-talkies were originally made in Canada. They're a lot bulkier and had to be carried on your back, because, you know, old technology and it being clunky and junk. This reminded me of how a lot of electric Pokemon in the anime are actually able to communicate and sense each other through their electrical powers. So, going with that idea, I cooked up Little Lemming, the mentality Pokemon. And for all you traditionalists saying it has to have a Japanese name, Pawmot broke that trend, so I don't feel like doing it. Also, the name Lemming just rolls off the tongue. It's a combination of lemming and mingled, which means to communicate. Speaking of lemmings, they're a small, short-tailed, thick-set rodent related to voles, but they're found in the Arctic tundra, so perfect for Canada. They're pretty much known for their sort of mob mentality during migration, having an old wives' tale saying that they'll all, and when I say all, I do mean all, jump off cliffs into the water if they see one other lemming do it. This will occasionally happen due to migratory habits, but it's been twisted in a much less desirable manner, especially during a Disney documentary called The White Wilderness, which aired in 1958, where this was all kind of staged, with a horde of lemmings kind of being, you know, just pushed off a cliff, just for the shot. Yeah. But changing away from that sour note, lemming will have a large patch of fur that runs up their back, acting sort of like a walkie-talkie antenna. They're very good at picking up on emotions of any Lemmingle around them, and even pinpointing its brethren. This ability, however, isn't strong enough to delve into the psychic typing yet, though in the future I might decide to give it an evolution. But what do you guys think? What do you think about my Poutine Pokemon, a raging prospector mammoth, an old solitary moose, some bear trap raccoons, some adorable eating beavers, and a little lemming? As someone not from Canada, I like to think I did them pretty good with these Fakemon. But what do you guys all think? Comment down below with your own opinions. Like, subscribe, follow me on Instagram where I post all these Fakemon months early, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.